Just give you a little brief update on where we are right now. We announced the beginning of phase one last week, beginning to see signs in the community of outdoor dining. I was able to have outdoor coffee the other day. We recognize that it is a challenge for a lot of restaurants who don't actually have frontage in terms of a wide sidewalk or don't have patios to open up something outside. So the county is looking at street closures and partial street closures in order to provide a larger environment for restaurants to be able to expand in. And we will be expediting any of the permitting processes that are needed to accomplish that. I didn't see with my own eyes any curbside pickup, but I know that it's beginning to get implemented. And I think it's going to take everybody a little bit of time to adjust to it and figure out how they're going to handle it. Probably one of the biggest difficulties is a lot of small businesses don't have inventories or their products in an online format where a person can just go to a website and see everything they have and say, would you please deliver me that shirt, that pair of pants, or that piece of pottery to the outside. So I'm sure this is a little bit more difficult than simply allowing curbside pickup. People have to adjust to how they're going to do that. We have shared with the council an outline of what we think phase two and phase three could look like. And we're not prepared to discuss it. We're waiting for their input on this. And so we're giving them time to bring us comments, and we will look at what we can do and how fast we can do it. Again, it's all going to depend on what happens with rates of infections. Hopefully those rates go down, and hopefully we continue to maintain space in our hospitals. Probably the two most important things in making the decisions. Do you have room for a surge? And are we getting our cases reduced in general? We've also started to implement the wider testing. We have access to the test kits that we've talked about. We are talking with community partners about where we can move things.
As the county executive mentioned, we have moved to our phase one step, and our dashboard continues to be updated with our measures in terms of our progress with metrics. I do want to bring attention to one thing that we did make a change in terms of how they are presented to be consistent with the recent guidelines that the CDC has provided in terms of how the information will be reported. We continue to utilize 3-day rolling averages, which is consistent with what we did before. But the tweak to this and the change to it is that we are comparing, instead of comparing today with yesterday's 3-day rolling average, we are comparing it to what it was 14 days ago. And that's how we're getting our number of days where we have seen declines over a 14-day period. Now, I want to make sure folks at home understand is that we will continue to follow those same metrics. And as the county executive pointed out, the ones that give us the most heartburn in particular are the capacity issues in terms of our hospitals. But I want to caution folks at home to understand that when we're looking at how we move from phase one to phase two, we're going to need to see more significant decreases in the number of our new cases, because we want to alleviate as much of the virus as possible in our communities, because the types of activities that would be introduced for a phase two approach increases the points of contact that people may have with each other. Another thing I wanted to highlight is we continue to expand our testing capacity. And as that grows, we are testing more people. In fact, this week, the most recent numbers this morning shows that we have tested over 65,000 individuals across the county. And we have the capacity to test at a minimum 5% of our population on a monthly basis. Now, as we've tested more people, we are seeing more cases. But the other number that we follow is the test positivity, and we're seeing that number continue to come down. The 7-day average, consistent with how the state is reporting that, is now at 12.7%, which is significantly lower than where we were over a month ago at over 30% of the tests that we were ordering coming back positive.
I've been designated as the county's recovery manager, meaning I'm simply coordinating our recovery efforts from COVID-19 while we still continue to respond to the actual disease itself. It's really important to recognize that as we talk about reopening, we recognize the reopening is a very important part of recovery, but it is not the only part of recovery that we have to focus on. So when we think about, businesses reopening, just because a business reopens doesn't mean that it will survive long term because of some of the losses they sustained or reduced business that they'll experience even when they reopen. And so we continue to focus on how we can make sure that we can deal with some of the long-term considerations, short, medium, and long-term considerations associated with COVID-19, the impact on our residents, the impact on our business, the impacts on our community.